Lions Nation. Something unexpected may be developing behind the scenes for the Detroit Lions, and it revolves around two players who have been generating more attention than many fans anticipated as the team moves closer to training camp. As the Lions continue their offseason work, the spotlight has naturally remained on the established stars and the expectations surrounding another important season. But sometimes the most interesting stories emerge from the players who are not expected to dominate the headlines. That is exactly what appears to be happening right now. Recent videos released by the Lions have sparked conversations among fans, and those clips have created intrigue for two very different reasons. One of the most talked about moments involved undrafted rookie quarterback Luke Altmyer delivering an impressive throw to Tom Kennedy. It was the kind of pass that immediately catches attention because of its accuracy and confidence. Even more interesting was the reaction seen in the background, where Jared Goff appeared visibly excited about what he had just witnessed. At first glance, it may have looked like a simple highlight designed to showcase a young quarterback making a good play, but when combined with another video released shortly afterward, the discussion became much more interesting. The second clip featured linebacker Jimmy Rolder intercepting a pass that appeared to come from veteran quarterback Teddy Bridgewater. The throw traveled over the middle on an intermediate to deep route, and Rolder made the play. What may have originally been intended as a highlight for a promising defensive player ended up fueling a completely different conversation among Lions fans. Suddenly, people started wondering about the backup quarterback situation. When Teddy Bridgewater returned to Detroit, many fans immediately viewed the move as a clear upgrade. The assumption was simple. Bridgewater would step into the backup role behind Jared Goff, and there would be little debate about it. His experience, knowledge of the game, and familiarity with NFL offenses made him the obvious choice in the eyes of many observers. However, not everyone viewed the situation the same way. There were already questions about Bridgewater's current physical abilities. While nobody doubts his football intelligence, some have wondered whether he still possesses the same arm strength that teams look for in a backup quarterback capable of stepping into a game at any moment. Bridgewater has never relied solely on physical gifts. His value has always come from experience, preparation, and decision-making. Those qualities remain important, but they do not completely eliminate competition. That brings the conversation back to Luke Altmyer. The rookie enters the organization with far more experience than some fans may realize. Over the course of his college career, he accumulated nearly 1,200 dropbacks and more than 1,000 passing attempts. He finished with over 7,900 passing yards and 60 touchdown passes. Those are not insignificant numbers, especially for a player entering the league as an undrafted free agent. Just as important as the statistics is the experience behind them. Luke Altmyer started for the majority of 3 seasons, including 2 complete seasons as a starter. His time at Illinois exposed him to concepts associated with a pro-style offense, giving him a foundation that could help accelerate his development at the NFL level. The encouraging reports coming from the coaching staff only add to the intrigue. Dan Campbell has already spoken positively about Luke Altmyer's ability to process information. According to Campbell, the rookie understands the calls, recognizes where players are supposed to line up, and is handling shifts and motions effectively. For a young quarterback entering an NFL system, those details matter. Knowing the offense is one thing, executing it at full speed is another, but the fact that coaches are already praising his understanding suggests he may be ahead of schedule in certain areas. Of course, there are still legitimate concerns. Questions remain about Luke Altmyer, arm strength, and the speed of his mechanics. His release is not considered especially quick, and that can become a challenge at the professional level where defenders close throwing windows much faster than they do in college. Even so, there are successful NFL quarterbacks who have overcome similar concerns through timing, anticipation, and preparation. The reality is that Altmyer's development may be progressing faster than many expected. That does not automatically mean he is ready to challenge for a major role, but it does mean he is becoming a player worth monitoring closely as training camp approaches. Meanwhile, another rookie is creating excitement on the defensive side of the ball. Jimmy Rolder continues to receive praise from coaches and observers alike. The former Michigan linebacker entered the NFL with some questions surrounding his experience level, largely because he spent only 1 season as a starter. However, those who followed his college career closely believed his talent was evident long before he became a full-time starter. Now that he is in Detroit, the early signs appear encouraging. Defensive coach Kelvin Shepard has highlighted Rolder's ability to absorb information and handle responsibilities that require significant mental processing. According to Shepard, playing both linebacker and safety responsibilities within this defensive system demands a high football IQ. The rookie appears to be meeting those expectations. Reports indicate that Rolder has been reading plays quickly and reacting decisively. That is exactly what the Lions need to see because the linebacker room faces important questions heading into the season. With Alex Anzalone no longer part of the equation, Detroit's linebacker group is entering a period of transition. Derek Barnes, Jack Campbell, and Malcolm Rodriguez are expected to play major roles, but there are still uncertainties surrounding the position. Rodriguez is returning from an ACL injury and has yet to establish himself as a full-time long-term starter. Barnes enters a critical stage of his career as well. That creates an opportunity, and if the early reports are accurate, Jimmy Rolder may be positioning himself to become a much bigger part of Detroit's future than many expected when he first arrived. As training camp gets closer, two separate storylines are beginning to converge. One involves a young quarterback quietly earning attention through strong performances and positive reviews from coaches. The other involves a rookie defender rapidly gaining trust inside a position group that needs new contributors. Neither story has reached its conclusion yet. In fact, both may just be getting started. The biggest question now is whether these offseason flashes will carry over when the intensity increases and the competition becomes far more demanding once training camp officially begins. Do you believe Luke Altmyer can create a real challenge for the backup quarterback position? Or is Jimmy Rolder's rapid development the more important storyline for the Lions moving forward? The fascinating part about these developments is that neither Luke Altmyer nor Jimmy Rolder arrived in Detroit carrying the expectations that usually accompany headline-grabbing prospects. Yet, as minicamp concluded and the Lions entered the quieter portion of the offseason, both players managed to put themselves squarely in the middle of conversations that could become increasingly important once training camp begins. For Altmyer, the challenge becomes very clear from this point forward. The positive comments from Dan Campbell are encouraging, and the highlight throw that generated attention certainly helped put his name on the radar of fans. But the next step is proving that those flashes can become consistent production. One impressive throw can create excitement. A series of impressive practices can create opportunity. That is where training camp becomes critical. Quarterbacks are evaluated differently than most positions. Every decision, every throw, every read is examined closely. Coaches want to know not only whether a quarterback can make a difficult throw, but whether he can repeatedly make the correct decision under pressure. They want to know if he can command the huddle, process information quickly, and avoid costly mistakes. The good news for Luke Altmyer is that some of the most difficult parts of that evaluation already appear to be trending in the right direction. The reports about his understanding of the offense are significant. Learning an NFL playbook is one of the biggest obstacles facing young quarterbacks. The terminology alone can be overwhelming. Add in pre-snap motions, shifts, protection adjustments, route concepts, and defensive recognition, and the learning curve becomes steep very quickly. That is why Campbell's comments stand out. The fact that Luke Altmyer reportedly knows where players are supposed to be and understands the responsibilities within the offense suggests that he is handling the mental side of the transition well. For an undrafted rookie, earning that kind of praise from the head coach is not something that should be overlooked. However, there is still a major difference between understanding the system and securing a roster position. The concerns surrounding his arm strength and release mechanics are still part of the conversation. Defenders in the NFL react faster than anything he faced in college. Throwing windows close rapidly. Pass rushers arrive sooner. Every fraction of a second matters. Because of that, training camp will provide a much clearer picture of where Altmyer truly stands. Can he continue building momentum against tougher competition? Can he consistently deliver accurate throws when defenders are disrupting the pocket? Can he maintain the same confidence when practices become more physical and the pressure increases? Those are the questions that will determine whether this story becomes a legitimate competition or simply an encouraging offseason development. At the same time, Jimmy Rolder appears to be building a case of his own on the defensive side. The interception that gained attention was only one play, but it fits a larger pattern that coaches seem to be noticing. Reports continue to suggest that Rolder is absorbing information quickly and playing with the kind of awareness that coaches value tremendously in young defenders. That becomes especially important when examining Detroit's linebacker situation. This position group is entering a period where opportunities are available for players willing to seize them. The departure of Alex Anzalone leaves a void not only in production but also in leadership and experience. Replacing that influence is not something that happens automatically. The Lions will need players to emerge. Jack Campbell is expected to continue developing into a cornerstone of the defense. Derek Barnes faces important expectations as well. Malcolm Rodriguez remains an intriguing player, but there are still unanswered questions as he continues working his way back from injury and attempts to establish himself as an every down contributor. That uncertainty creates room for someone like Rolder. One of the most encouraging aspects of the report surrounding him is the emphasis on his mental processing. Physical talent is important, but linebackers often succeed or fail based on how quickly they diagnose what is happening in front of them. The difference between making a tackle near the line of scrimmage and allowing a significant gain often comes down to recognition and reaction time. According to the comments coming from Detroit's coaching staff, Rolder is showing exactly those traits. He is reportedly reading plays quickly, he is reacting decisively, he is demonstrating an understanding of responsibilities that often takes young defenders much longer to develop. That does not guarantee immediate playing time, but it certainly increases the likelihood that coaches will continue giving him opportunities to prove himself. What makes this entire situation so intriguing is that both players are earning attention for similar reasons. Neither story is being driven primarily by athletic testing numbers or draft status. Instead, both Altmyer and Rolder are receiving praise because of how quickly they are processing information and adapting to professional football. Those qualities often determine which young players survive roster battles and which ones fade into the background. As the Lions move closer to training camp, the excitement surrounding established stars will naturally dominate most headlines. But behind the scenes, some of the most important developments may involve players who entered the offseason with far less attention. If Altmyer continues progressing, the backup quarterback discussion could become much more interesting than many expected. If Rolder continues developing at his current pace, the Lions may have found a young defender capable of helping address one of the team's most important future needs. For now, all of these questions remain unanswered. The encouraging offseason reports have created excitement. The highlight plays have generated discussion. The coaches have offered positive evaluations, but the real test is still ahead, and that is where these stories will either gain momentum or begin to fade. Training camp is approaching quickly, and once the pads come on, every player will have an opportunity to prove exactly who they are. If these early signs are any indication, Lions fans may want to pay very close attention to